Assalamu alaikum everyone, thank you to the MCB for inviting me. Allah stole half of my speech, so I guess I'll have to personalise it and talk about personal experiences and how that ties into my academic work. My name is Rizwaan Sabir. I, for a living, am a final year PhD student at the University of Strathclyde in Glasgow. But I have earned notoriety as the student that was arrested at university. So if you don't know who I am, I guess that label gets branded around a lot. I've tried to get rid of it for the last 3 years, 4 months and maybe a few days, but it seems to be sticking. For those that don't know what happened, I'm going to very briefly summarise it. I hate this story. I was arrested in 2008 in May on the University of Nottingham campus. I had in possession a document known as, nicknamed by the American United States Department of Justice website, the Al-Qaeda Training Manual. Sounds really dangerous. It's absolutely not. It was written by an American double agent in the 1970s, I believe, and was declassified after it was used in a trial in the United States to convict the 1998 bombers in East Africa. The document was obtained by myself off the US Department of Justice. It was sent to a friend who had kindly, with hindsight, sadly, offered to assist me with my research. It was discovered on his computer, and 10 years of constant Muslim bashing came to the fore when an individual saw that document along with two very dangerous documents, one called Bush's Revolution from Foreign Affairs, the Journal, and one called Killing in the Name of Islam, Al-Qaeda's Justifications for 9/11, from another dangerous document called Middle East Journal. These two documents and the Al-Qaeda Training Manual were then reported to the registrar of the University of Nottingham, who, because it was a security issue, thought to himself that he could absolutely undermine every single process or protocol or statute that that institution had, and told the deputy head of security to contact Special Branch. Special Branch were called. They said this is above our pay grade. They contacted West Midlands counter-terrorism unit, and within 2 days an inquiry was launched, including a gold command was set up. This is how serious this was. Codename Operation Minerva, which, if you don't know, that is the Greek goddess of wisdom, so somebody obviously with a sense of irony gave it that name. So Operation Minerva was set up, Gold Command was set up, 26 police officers, including forensics teams, came in, arrested my friend Hisham Yeza, an Algerian national. And when I came onto campus that morning and asked if my friend was okay, I was also arrested as a terrorist, but ironically the white person who's a non-Muslim who also asked about my friend Hisham Yeza wasn't arrested, but dare I say that the police were behaving in a racist manner. But I think I've just said that. Okay, so I get locked up for 6 days, 7 days I beg your pardon, in solitary confinement. I'm released without charge, but don't get this wrong. I was released because there was a problem with the offence with which I was going to be charged with. I wasn't released because I was innocent. I was released because Section 58, the offence possession for terrorist intent, was going through the Court of Appeal at the time. Samina Malik, you probably know Samina Malik, the lyrical terrorist. She eventually got acquitted, but she had a copy of the Al-Qaeda Training Manual. And at the time that I was in custody, this was going through the Court of Appeal. So Samina Malik, was she allowed to have this or not? She was. So the police thought, oh, okay, we can't really charge him because we don't know where the law stands. So they said, we've got to let him go. So I was released, not because the police thought he's innocent, but because there was an offence, a technicality with the Section 58 offence. I had this confirmed in writing from the former head of West Midlands counter-terrorism unit. Now these people have got to be more careful when they speak, because he was speaking to a friend of mine who's a researcher at the University of Warwick, and he told him that if Rizwaan Sabir was to be arrested again, this is 2 months ago, if he was to be arrested again in the same circumstances, he would be charged as a terrorist. Now, this is a really, really important point. I have a mouth on me. Undoubtedly, I've been referred to as a motor mouth cheeky chappy. And those of you that, if any of you know me or have heard me talk, you probably understand why. But I'm not what you call a terrorist. I never have been. But from being somebody who was researching Al-Qaeda and American foreign policy, because of the way I look, I went within minutes of being someone who was researching on a university campus to being someone involved in, as it says on my police national computer record, offences against the state. From literally within seconds, that's what happened. So I'm released, and I'm pretty angry. I'm pretty saddened by what's happened. I was naive enough to think that in Britain this wouldn't really happen. Remind me of the time, because I've got to. I'll stop ranting. So I'm released. I start campaigning, etc. And then I think to myself, why did the university do what they did, and how have they got away with it? So I instruct lawyers to bring proceedings against the police for false imprisonment under Race Relations Act, Human Rights Act, and the Data Protection Act, because they hold an intelligence file on me which contains information full of inaccuracies, such as that I am a convicted terrorist. When, if I'm convicted, I don't know, because I've served no time for it. I wear a top that has the words Free Palestine on it. I wear Converse trainers that are really, really old. And I copy a carry of the Human Rights Act in my car, which is just not true, but if it was true, it wouldn't be intelligence. So 3 years of a legal battle, I win. And on the last day that an out-of-court settlement could be made, my lawyers get a fax from the police, Chief Constable in Nottinghamshire, who was in charge of the operation. And they'd like to settle out of court. £20,000 in damages, all legal expenses paid, all the incorrect information taken off the intelligence files, and an apology issued for a stop and search which was unlawful and that was conducted on me because it said I was a convicted terrorist. A real result, and I hope something that really explains to people that if you have enough determination to clear your name, if you've been wrongly labelled, then it's possible. But it's not over. And it's not over, and this is where it comes on to why I'm here today. Universities. Universities, get this clear, they are totally, utterly unaccountable bodies in the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. No body in the UK, no organisation has the remit, indeed desire, to hold these universities to account. They can't do it. They're totally autonomous. When I was arrested, a former soldier, a Times reading man called Rod Thornton, I don't know if any of you have been following his case, wrote a 112-page document with a really long title, but I'm going to tell you it's really juicy. It's called Radicalisation at Universities or Radicalisation by Universities, How a Student's Use of a Library Book Became a Major Islamist Plot. And that's what the Home Office were doing. They were issuing a document which labelled me as being involved in a major Islamist plot. This is the Home Office. By the way, that document that I downloaded, you can buy it and you can tell your kids and brothers and sisters to buy it from W.H. Smith, 1995. And it comes in a really nice glossy cover, I forgot to mention that. So he writes this paper and he gets suspended. So we write to everyone, and he's writing to everyone within this 3 years that this is all going on. He writes to Special Branch, he writes to the Department of Business Innovation and Skills, he writes to UUK, he writes to the Parliamentary and Health Ombudsman, he writes to the ministers in the relevant departments, he writes to every single organisation you can think of. I also write to every single organisation I can think of, and they all turn around and say, sorry, off you go, we can't do anything. And in the UUK's case, they say we have no desire to support public inquiry, which is what we're trying to do. So let's just get this clear then. Universities have been in the limelight now for many years, and I did something really strange because researchers do things that are really strange. And I printed off the Guardian, broadsheet coverage of all the issues regarding radicalisation and universities from 1985. So I read it from 1985 up until the year 2001, before 9/11. And nearly every single article mentions two groups. And without surprise, I think you know which ones they are, Al-Muhajirun and Hizb ut-Tahrir. And these two groups, nothing's changed. I mean, the coverage has changed, the press or whatever, but it's these two groups that are considered to be a real problem. And they're considered to be a problem, from what I understood from these press cuttings, was because of their anti-Israeli stance. That's the problem. But coming back to it, okay, so now we've got this new prevent strategy, nothing's changed, universities are still a critical component of this strategy, which is not a counter-terrorism strategy. It's an ideological strategy. It's trying. This is why people say prevent a failure or a success. We don't know. It's going to take 30 years, i.e. it's a generational change, because to influence and engineer a generation which condemns violence takes a generation. This is why it's generational change, and this is why it's going to take 30 years to do it, for example. So universities. Now we've got this figure branded about 30%. Well, anybody who knows anything about prevent will know that this is a real problem. We've also got this, I mean, we don't even know how many Muslim students there are in British universities, so I don't know how they're doing this. And someone mentioned before, 100% of us go to school. So why is it that schools aren't ever mentioned? I asked a civil servant, very senior civil servant in the Department of Business, Innovation and Skills, where are these figures coming from? And she turned around and said, Centre for Social Cohesion. Centre for Social Cohesion, which is a right-wing, neoconservative outlet, and they don't hide that. All the funders are pro-Zionist, pro-Israel, right-wing people. It's not a secret. Whereas at the same time, everyone else is saying, sorry, just give me a minute. The NUS, UUK, FOSIS, ACPO, Business Innovation and Skills, and Vice Chancellors are all saying that there is no radicalisation on campus. So how is it that we've got this strategy, this prevent strategy, which focuses on universities, but every person who's involved in the damn thing is saying there's no problem? That's because there is no problem, nowhere near as sophisticated or as severe as the prevent strategy makes out, because it's empty rhetoric. I believe from the research that I've done is that it is just empty rhetoric. A lot of it is to convince people that something is being done. One interesting thing that I have found though, and this ties on, I want to briefly touch on intelligence. When UUK did their report recently on freedom of speech, they sent out a survey to all British universities, and Allah very kindly told me it was 130 universities in Britain. 40 universities responded to that survey. Now, either Vice Chancellors are being extremely negligent when it comes down to the very serious issue of campus radicalisation and counter-terrorism, or they understand that the problem is nowhere near as severe for that issue to deserve their time, effort, energy and resources. But interestingly, what the surveys did say is that on average, half of the universities, those responded, that's 20, have regular contact with special branch, counter-terrorism units and spooks, MI5. So why is it that they can't be bothered to return these surveys, but they can have regular meetings with special branch and counter-terrorism units and all the rest of it in the MI5? Something's not quite right here. Which ties me on to my next point very briefly. We know information is shared between higher education institutions and further colleges and the police. It's set in law, the Crime and Disorder Act 1998, and if the police officers will know what I'm talking about. Local partnerships share information with the police and other statutory partners for best practice. We know that, it's a fact. We also know that the surveys that universities responded to said that they were having informal meetings, and this is encouraged, between university security officers and the police and special branch. I personally know this because the head of security at the University of Nottingham, my former university, has friends in special branch. And I know I have enough evidence to prove that the police have been passing him intelligence files on me, that I have been involved in protesting about Palestine. I know the police have passed him that because word for word he produces a security report for the Vice Chancellor which has exactly the same wording. Luckily he got the spelling of breach of the peace right? But other than that, everything is identical, right? What I also know is that there was an intelligence file, and on that intelligence file, and I've never told anybody this, but I'm going to tell you, it says there was a protest at the NUS at the University of Nottingham, and on that protest, this is on a criminal intelligence system, just so we're clear, it says that the President of the Islamic Society may come, Rizwaan Sabir may come, and Hisham Yeza, my co-accused, may come.